Hi, my name is Hannah Salvatore. I'm one of the registered dietitians over at Samaritan Hospital. Today we are going to be talking about food and mood. So specifically, we're going to be talking a little bit about how what we eat affects the way that we feel and how we can change the way that we feel based on making healthier decisions with our food and our meals. You've probably heard the phrase garbage in, garbage out. If you put food into your body that isn't good for you and makes you feel bad in your body, it tends to make you feel bad in your mind as well. So if we can work on changing that and putting better foods into your body, then you are ultimately going to end up feeling better, and that will help you to make better choices in the future. Have you ever had a food that you really wanted to eat and you really thought that it was going to make you happy? You thought, wow, if I eat this, I'm going to feel really good. And then you eat it, and maybe initially you did feel kind of happy, or you did feel good, but in the end it actually made you feel not so good. That kind of sets you up for failure the next time that you're faced with a difficult decision, or even a decision regarding what you're going to eat next. And so that addictive cycle, it pertains to food as well as it does to controlled substances and alcohol and other things that we more commonly think of when we think of addiction. So today we're going to talk about three things. First thing we're going to do is we're going to talk about foods that you want to decrease in your diet because these foods tend to make us feel unwell. The second thing we're going to talk about is foods that you're going to want to increase in your diet because these are foods that are going to tend to make you feel better and healthier. And then finally, we're going to talk a little bit about some behavioral changes that you can make in order to help you implement the increase of these healthy foods and the decrease of these unhealthy foods. All right, so first we're going to get started with some of the foods that tend to make us feel bad. And again, when we're eating foods like this, in the moment they can make us feel happy. Some of these foods we tend to eat a lot of when we're out with friends, when we're having a good time, at cookouts, at restaurants. So initially, they can make us feel good and happy, but if we eat too many of them, they tend to make our bodies feel kind of gross and sluggish and lethargic. First one that I think of is foods that are high in fats and high in sodium. So that's things like deep fried foods, cold cut meats, cheeses, French fries, those kinds of foods. They're deep fried, they're very high in fats. They tend to also be very high in sodium or salt. They don't really disappoint us in taste, do they? But if we eat a lot of them, they kind of tend to disappoint our bodies in the way we feel afterwards. They can make you feel kind of sick. They can make you feel kind of lethargic, and you don't really feel like doing very much after you eat them, right? And then over time, these foods are actually damaging to our bodies. They can promote cardiovascular disease and hypertension and the development of other chronic diseases as well. So another food that you want to decrease your consumption of is foods that are very high in sugar and foods that are processed grains like white bread and white rice and crackers. Those kinds of foods, they tend to go down really easy and they taste really good, but they tend to leave us feeling very hungry much later because your body doesn't really have much to work on when you eat those foods. If you eat foods that are very high in sugar, you can feel really tired after you eat those. A lot of desserts or sugar-sweetened beverages like sodas and coffee drinks, they can leave your mouth feeling really dry. And then they can also kind of make you feel a little sick to your stomach, especially the sugar-sweetened liquids, because you can drink a lot of that at once. Then the last food or type of food that you want to watch out for is foods that are really high in caffeine. So again, like a sweetened coffee drink or a soda, or anything else that has a lot of caffeine in it. It's very easy to consume a lot of that all at once, and that can lead to feelings of like being anxious or jittery if you're eating too much caffeine or drinking too much caffeine. It also suppresses your appetite, so it can prevent you from eating regularly throughout the day. It can cause you to go 6 hours without eating, and that's not so good for you either. So you'll start to feel tired, you won't be able to concentrate very well. And then too much caffeine can also decrease your ability to get good sleep at night. So decreasing your caffeine intake might help with sleeping, and it might also help you to just eat more normally throughout the day as well. All right, so these are a couple of different foods and food groups that you want to watch out for and try to limit in your diet. So then next we're going to talk about some foods that we want to try to increase in our diet because they are healthier for us, and they'll make us feel a little bit better. So the first thing is you want to try to increase your consumption of fruits and vegetables. Because we all know that fruits and vegetables are healthy, right? And the reason for that is because they're full of vitamins and minerals, and they're also high in some antioxidants, like, for instance, vitamin C. That's an antioxidant that's found in citrus foods and bell peppers. It's found in a lot of different fruits and vegetables. And one of the great things about vitamin C is it helps to lower one of the stress hormones called cortisol. And cortisol is that hormone that you experience when you're faced with something that makes you really scared. So like, for instance, if there was this big terrifying dog coming at you and you thought it was going to bite you, that jolt of energy that you get is from cortisol. And that cortisol allows you to either try to fight the dog off or it allows you to run away as fast as you can. Now, in today's world, most of the time, we're not being confronted with issues that make us, that we can solve by fighting or running away from them. We have a lot of stressors like nasty emails that we get from people or financial stressors, things that you can't really like fight or run away from. So we tend to have a lot of cortisol rushing through our bodies all the time and stressing us out. And in the long run, that's really, really bad for us. That can promote obesity, cardiovascular disease, hypertension, and a bunch of other chronic diseases too. Any disease that's caused by stress, which is most of them. So in the long run, having a lot of cortisol levels is really bad for you. It doesn't make you feel good either. It makes you feel really anxious. So eating your foods that are high in the vitamin C, like the citrus fruits and bell peppers, those can help to lower that cortisol level and make you feel a little bit better. All right, so one of the other things that we want to try to increase in our diets is whole grains. So we talked before about how the processed grains, which are the ones that have had the bran and the germ removed, those ones are not so good for you because basically once you've taken those two things out of the grain, you're left with just energy and there isn't as much nutrients in them. Whereas a whole grain are products that are made without being processed. So they have all three parts of the grain still in the product, and that means that that product is going to have a lot more vitamins and minerals in it, as well as some other antioxidants, which I'll talk about in a second. So another great thing about whole grains is that it contains fiber. And fiber is actually really good for a lot of different reasons because not only does it help us with our GI tract and having regular bowel movements, which makes us feel better, it also helps us to regulate our blood sugar, so it keeps our blood sugar from going too high. And then it also can help to lower our cholesterol levels. So fiber is really, really great. It's a good thing to include in your diet. And then in addition to that, whole grains are like a one package deal for the production of serotonin. So you've probably heard of serotonin. If not, it's like the happiness neurotransmitter. It's something that we associate with feelings of being euphoric and being happy. So serotonin also, in addition to helping to regulate our mood, is important in regulating sleep and our appetites. Kind of keeps your appetite under control, helps you to sleep at night. So that serotonin is made from a couple of the B vitamins, all of which you get from whole grains. So that is vitamin B6, folic acid, and vitamin B12. And all those things are found in the whole grains. So with eating the whole grains, you're basically giving yourself a chance to make as much serotonin as you can in a day. All right, so that could help you to feel a little bit better too. Feel better in your GI tract, blood sugar's under control, you're lowering your cholesterol, which makes you feel good about yourself, and you can make some serotonin with your whole grains. All right, and the last thing we're going to talk about that's good to increase in your diet is healthy fats. So healthy fats are going to be fats that are found from plant sources. So that'll be like different oils, olive oil, canola oil, nuts, nut butters like almonds, walnuts, peanut butter, flax seeds, and avocado. Those are all good examples of healthy fats. So these healthy fats also have antioxidants in them. It has vitamin E in it and selenium. The vitamin E is, we know, good for our skin, and it's also, like all the other antioxidants, important in helping our bodies to prevent the damage that's done to our cells and our tissues from free radicals, which is just something that happens to us from the daily processes of living. So the more antioxidants you have in your diet, the less your tissues and your cells are going to be hurt throughout the day. Healthy oils and fats also tend to have vitamin B6 associated with them in those foods as well, which again is another component to making serotonin. And then there's a really good healthy fat called an omega-3, which is very anti-inflammatory, whereas some of those other foods that are really high in fats, like the deep fried foods we talked about, those are pro-inflammatory. So the anti-inflammatory omega-3 fatty acids, those help to decrease the stress on our bodies, which can help to decrease our risk of developing chronic diseases. So some examples of where you might be able to find the omega-3s are in a couple of different types of fish, like mackerel, sardines, salmon. It's also very high in walnuts and flax seeds. All right. So to review thus far, there are 3 things you want to try to decrease in your diet. That's foods that are very high in fats, like deep fried foods, which also tend to be high in sodium. Foods that are high in sugar and also processed grains. And then foods that are high in caffeine. And on the flip side, the things that we want to increase in our diets are healthy fats, whole grains, and we want to try to eat more fruits and vegetables. So you're thinking, okay, well, I've got this knowledge now. What do I do with it? How do I make these changes? Because it's not always easy to change your behavior, right? So the last thing that we're going to talk about is the concept of mindful eating. So maybe you've heard of mindful eating before, maybe not. So I'll go through it with you and explain what mindful eating is. And what we're going to do is we're going to talk about a couple of habits that are a little mindless when it comes to eating. And we're going to counter those mindless habits with a more mindful technique that will help you to eventually make these healthy changes in your diet to help you to feel better. All right, so the first mindless eating habit that I want to talk about is eating based on our emotions. So this is something that everybody does. We like to eat based on how we feel. Doesn't really matter what the feeling is. We can be happy, sad, lonely, depressed, all those things, and somehow we still want to eat. But there are some emotions that are a little bit more negative that tend to make us want to eat for comfort's sake. So those would be emotions like anger, depression, loneliness, being tired. If you're feeling one of those more negative emotions, you're more likely to want to eat in order to kind of balm that feeling. So instead of you know turning to food to comfort yourself when you're not feeling well, instead you want to try to eat only based on your hunger cues. So listen to your body. If your stomach isn't rumbling and you feel like you want to eat just because, you probably don't need to. So it's probably better to try to distinguish between true hunger and the hunger that we get from feeling tired or feeling stressed out. If you ate an hour ago and you ate a really big meal and you're feeling really stressed and you want to eat something again, chances are you probably don't need to. But if you want to, you could have something like a healthy snack. Have something ready to go and prepared. So the next thing is when we're feeling emotional and we want to eat something, we're not usually going to go for a carrot, right? We're not going to eat apples or carrot sticks when we're feeling sad. We go for comfort foods, right? So, it's another thing that we all do. It's easy to want to turn to a deep fried food or a really high sugar food or something that's going to make us, we think feel better in the moment when we're not feeling good. So instead of turning to comfort foods, if you want to have, like I said, if you want to have a snack or you want to eat something because you're not feeling well, it's better to be prepared and have some healthy snacks laying around and make the conscientious decision to eat something that's good for you instead of turning to something that you know is probably inevitably not going to make you feel better in the long run. So the next mindless eating habit is eating too much. So eating past the point of feeling full. So they say that it takes about 20 minutes for your brain to register that your stomach has had enough in it to satisfy you. So I don't know about you, but I tend to eat my meals in less than 20 minutes. It's very, very easy to eat very fast and to eat beyond the point of feeling full. Kind of sometimes it takes like 10 minutes for you to eat your meal, and then you want seconds, so then you go get seconds, and then before you know it, you feel like you've eaten a lot, and that really doesn't make you feel very good. So instead, you can try to slow down your eating. There's a couple ways you can do that. Some people, they like to put their fork down between their bites, so that forces them to chew thoroughly and swallow, and then pick up the fork, get another forkful of food, and that way you're really slowing down your eating, and it might take you a good 20 minutes to finish your meal in that case. Something else you can do is drink some water with your meals. So you take a couple bites of food and just finish with that, take a little drink of water, and that'll help you to feel a little bit more full as you go along, and that way you're less likely to want to go back for seconds. Your body will register that you've eaten enough, and you won't have to go back for more, or won't want to go back for more. So you want to try to listen to your body's signals for satiety or for feeling good about the amount that you've eaten, and stop when your body says, I've had enough. All right, so the next mindless habit we're going to talk about is eating alone and at random times. So if we eat by ourselves, then it is a lot more easy to eat at random times. Some people, they don't really have a choice, they live by themselves. So really, you could eat at any time during the day, but it's a lot better if you have a set time when you eat and a set place where you eat. And if you can, to eat with somebody, it just makes the meal experience more pleasurable. And then also, if you're talking with somebody, you're probably less likely to eat your food all at once, inhale it, and then go back for more. So you want to try to have a set time and place to eat. So make sure when you eat, you're eating like at your kitchen table or your little, like some people have a little like bar area in their kitchen. If that's where you eat, then you should eat there all the time. Don't go and eat on the sofa in front of the television, which leads us to our next point, distracted eating. Is another one that I'm kind of guilty of, and I think a lot of people are. We really like to eat in front of our televisions in today's world, or to eat over our lunch break. Basically, at any time when you are not paying attention to what you're eating, you're paying attention to something else while you eat, you are much more likely to overeat. You'll eat more, and you're also more likely to overeat those types of foods that are not good for you. Like, how easy is it to open up a bag of potato chips and you sit in front of the television, before you know it, you've eaten the entire thing. You're like, wow, where did that go? So it's very, very easy to overeat when you're distracted. So instead, something that you can do, it's probably easier to do at home than, say, at work, but just taking time to focus on your food. Focus on what your plate looks like. Does it have a lot of colors on it? Does it have a lot of variations in texture? Focus for a moment on the smell of your food. And then once you start eating it, try to identify all the different flavors of the foods that you're eating and how they work with one another, how maybe they don't work with one another. It's kind of a fun thing to do. I remember doing it once when I was in college, and I was eating a piece of sausage, and I didn't realize that there was anise seed in it. But until I stopped and chewed very thoroughly and thought to myself, wow, that's kind of interesting. I didn't know that there was licorice flavor in this sausage, and it tasted really good. So you might discover something new about your food by doing that. And just by focusing on it, you're more likely to be appreciative of it. That's something else you can do. Instead of being distracted, think about where your food came from, how it got to you. Be thankful for it. Thank yourself for working hard to provide for yourself to get your food. So just taking a moment to check in with your meal can go a long ways toward helping you to not only make the right healthy decisions when you're planning your meals, but also to prevent you from overeating. All right, so that's it for the mindful eating. To review, the foods that we want to try to decrease in our diet are high-fat foods like deep-fried foods and foods that are high in sodium. We also want to try to decrease foods that are high in sugar and processed grains, and we want to try to decrease our consumption of caffeine. And then on the flip side, we want to try to increase our fruit and vegetable intake because they have a lot of good antioxidants in them. We want to increase our intake of whole grains, and we want to increase our intake of healthy fats because all those healthy foods are going to help our bodies to create the chemicals that we need for our brains to function well. And then finally, when it comes to making these changes, basically you just want to try to check in with yourself. You want to listen to your hunger cues, don't overeat, listen to your body when it tells you it's full. Don't eat, and if you want to eat or if you have to eat, try to choose something that's healthy. Try to have your meals at set times and set places. You have a lot more control over what you eat in that way. And then just be grateful for your food. So thank you for tuning in to lesson number 1, food and mood. Now that this lesson is over, you can test your knowledge with the post quiz. Thank you for your attention.